Who is the less racist party, Democrats or the Republicans? It's actually the Republicans, whether you believe that or not. The Republicans are far and away the less racist party. And this is provably true. You don't even need to do a deep dive to figure this out. You only need to do like a surface level search to realize this. And this is true historically and currently. All right, let's do some history. The Democrat Party was founded in 1829. They were like pro-slavery all the way. They were for it. They're the party that pushed us into the Civil War. The Republicans were opposed to slavery. From the beginning, they were. The Democrat Party was all about segregation. And even after the Civil War, they opposed Reconstruction. They're basically the ones that founded the KKK and used the KKK as almost like an enforcement arm to control blacks in the South, okay? During the 1950s and 60s, they opposed the civil rights bills. The bill eventually got passed, but they opposed it, okay? And going into some of their presidents, let's talk about Wilson. All right, Woodrow Wilson, from the early 1900s, a Democrat president, a very famous one, was a notorious racist. That guy resegregated, like R-E, multiple federal agencies in the government after they had already been desegregated. How about the Democrats' favorite of all time, FDR, Franklin Roosevelt? Franklin Roosevelt very well might have been a good wartime president. All right, he got us through World War II. He did. But the man was actually known to be very anti-Semitic. He made many disparaging remarks about Jews through his life. In fact, he had many, many opportunities to save tremendous amounts of Jewish people from Europe during World War II when they were being gassed. And he neglected to do that for the most part. Again, provably true. Just look these things up. He could have saved many, many more of them, but he didn't. The other thing he did was he rounded up Japanese Americans and put them into internment camps. So after Pearl Harbor, there was this fear that Japanese American saboteurs would come and infiltrate the U.S. Under FDR, they rounded these people up and put them in camps. All right, that's FDR. So, going back in time again a little bit, in 1854, the Republican Party was founded. They were founded as the anti-slavery party. Their goals were to take the western part of the country, which was being formed into various different states, and prohibit those states from being slave states because they were anti-slavery. And their ultimate goal was to abolish the practice entirely. Hence, when you have these two opposing parties butting heads over like about a decade or so, the Civil War starts. But the Republicans from the jump were against it, whereas the Democrats were for slavery. There was a Supreme Court decision, Dred Scott versus Sandford. There were 7 Democrats who voted against the 2 Republicans on the Supreme Court, where they decided that slaves were not considered like citizens, but rather property. Democrat-led Supreme Court overruled the Republican part of it, all right? And that's what they determined. They were also unified in stopping the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments from being passed. All right. So the 13th was where we abolished slavery, all right? The 14th, we granted black people citizenship, and the 15th, we gave them the ability to vote. Democrats opposed all of it. They opposed all that. It was only by Republicans being unified that those things got passed. So going back to Reconstruction after the Civil War, federal troops were put down in the South to protect freed black slaves, all right, from being harassed. But as soon as the Democrats regained power down there, they implemented things called like black codes, where they like stopped black people from being able to own property or run businesses, and they created like literacy tests and poll taxes to hinder them from voting. It's all the Democrat Party, enforced by the KKK, which was itself founded by a Democrat. Let's go on. Democrat President LBJ, so Lyndon Johnson, in the 1960s, was also a notorious racist. He would use the N-word all the time. When he finally realized, because he didn't want to do that, he didn't want to like sign the Civil Rights Act, But it came into their understanding that, hey, you know what? It's going to happen. So if it's going to happen, we might as well get it to where we game the system and have like blacks overwhelmingly vote for us. He is quoted as saying, I'll have the N-words voting Democrat for 200 years. That's Lyndon Johnson in the 1960s. He said that. So then after that, what they did was they flooded the country with like massive government welfare, which destroyed tons of black families. They opposed vehemently school choice, which they oppose to this day. They're adamant about this. The Democrats want nothing to do with school choice. Even though the schools are failing terribly and pushing complete woke garbage, they oppose that. And yet school choice would help black children dramatically. Dramatically. They're totally opposed to it to this day. There's Biden. Get into the current day, who is himself a racist. Provably racist. Has made racist comments. Was friends with segregationist senators, multiple ones. Eulogized Senator Byrd, who was himself a notorious racist. Eulogized that man in 2010. And go back a little bit before that, into 1994, Biden spearheaded the crime bill. The 1994 crime bill. Which ultimately led to an extremely large amount of African-American men to be incarcerated. It increased incarceration rates dramatically. And that bill was spearheaded by Joe Biden. And now, with all like the illegal immigration coming in from the southern border, in a lot of cases, they're relocating those people into black communities, taking away opportunities, taking away resources, because they just don't care. They don't really care about black people. They never really have. They use them. It's time that people spoke up about this. Going back to like the illegal immigration, I want to talk about this for a second. As a Christian, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think that all or even most of these people that come across the border are like evil or wicked or whatever. I have empathy for a lot of them. This process needs to stop, period. It has to be done through legal means. Federal law requires it to be done through legal means. It's just that Biden and Mayorkas are not abiding by federal law, okay? And it's creating chaos. However, we still need to like have empathy, especially as Christians, for these people that are coming across the border, because a lot of them are very, very good people. There's a lot of bad apples, unfortunately, and this is creating insane situations for a lot of people, a lot of kids, women, all right? And it's got to stop, okay? But again, as Christians, we have to have empathy. But like I said, it's got to stop. But all these things are from Democrat initiatives. I am not going to sit here and say I love everything about the Republican Party. I do not. They are spineless in a lot of ways. They become cowardly in a lot of ways. A lot of them are probably compromised in all sorts of ways. It's Democrats too, though. But I do not agree with everything they do. And they need to change their ways up, for sure. Stop being so weak about a lot of things. The way that things are, overwhelmingly, are because of Democrat policies and initiatives. And people really need to wake up to this. Do a little search. You don't need to do a deep dive. Google this. Take a look into it. You'll find that this is the truth. Read it and stew on it. And then you make a decision come November who you want to vote for.